What if I told you that you don't choose the wrong people because of bad luck, misfortune, or coincidence? What if, in truth, these choices are merely a reflection of something living inside you? Something you may have never stopped to face? The truth is, there's a pattern. And no, it's not in the other. It's in you. Carl Jung, one of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century, dedicated his life to understanding what lies beneath our repetitive behaviors, our emotional choices, and our deepest pain. In this video, we're going to dive into the human psyche and uncover why we so often end up in relationships that hurt us, drain us, or trap us. And more importantly, we'll understand how to break free from this cycle. Because yes, there is a way out. But it doesn't go through the other. It goes through you. This is an invitation to look inward with courage. Because maybe, just maybe, you're out there searching for a part of yourself that you've never fully seen. Prepare yourself. Some truths will sting, but the freedom that follows them is irreplaceable. Have you noticed how certain types of people always seem to cross your path? How even after promising yourself that this time it'll be different, you still find yourself in relationships with the same conflicts, the same silences, the same aching feeling of abandonment? That's not bad luck. That's a pattern. According to Carl Jung, there are unconscious forces within us that act like magnets. We attract what mirrors what's unresolved inside. Jung called these complexes emotional structures formed in childhood, especially through intense feelings we couldn't understand or express at the time. These complexes hide deep within our psyche and shape our preferences, reactions, even our romantic bonds. When we don't recognize them, we live on autopilot, repeating the same stories, changing the cast, but keeping the script. That's why we're often drawn to people who make us relive old wounds. Not because we're masochists, but because something within us is still trying to understand, rewrite, or complete what was left unfinished. We are pulled by what we still long to heal. This awareness may be uncomfortable, but it's also liberating. Because if the pattern is inside, the key to breaking it is too. And recognizing this is the first step toward freedom. As Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Maybe that fate you keep grieving is just a reflection of what you haven't yet dared to face within yourself. And the good news? That can change, but not without effort, not without courage. There's a part of you that you've learned to hide, not out of malice, not out of cowardice, but because, at some point, someone told you it was ugly, wrong, or shameful. So you pushed it down, buried it, pretended it didn't exist, but it's there, and it's alive. Jung called that part the shadow. It holds everything you've rejected in yourself, your fears, traumas, repressed anger, hidden desires, and denied impulses. But not only that, the shadow also guards forgotten talents, neglected strengths, entire pieces of your soul that you were never allowed to express. The great tragedy is this: the more you deny your shadow, the more it shapes your choices. Silently, it guides your reactions, attracts people who poke at those hidden wounds, and creates a constant discomfort you can't quite explain. Why does that person irritate you so much? Why does that comment cut so deep? Why do certain situations trigger such intense emotion? Because in that discomfort, your shadow is speaking. Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." In other words, what disturbs you out there is often what's buried in here. And the relationships you choose, especially the ones that hurt the most, are perfect mirrors of this dynamic. You don't attract the wrong people by accident. You attract what your shadow hasn't yet integrated. And in doing so, life is giving you an opportunity to look directly at what you fear most in yourself. Accepting your shadow doesn't mean surrendering to destructive impulses. It means recognizing them, understanding them, welcoming them. Because only then do they stop controlling you. Denying your shadow makes you a prisoner. Integrating it makes you whole. And no one, absolutely no one, can live a true, deep love while being fragmented inside. That's why the path to stop choosing the wrong people begins with the hardest choice of all: to choose to see yourself fully, light and dark, virtues and flaws, all of it. That's where healing begins, and that's when you truly start choosing differently. Maybe you know this story too well. You give, you try, you tolerate what you shouldn't, all in the name of love. You believe that with patience, presence, and care, the other person will change. They'll mature. They'll finally see how much you matter. But chapter after chapter, the ending is always the same. You exhausted, them unchanged. This fantasy that we can heal the other, teach them how to love, or transform them through the power of our affection is more common than it seems, and it runs deep. Jung linked it to the wounded healer archetype, the part of us that, still bleeding from our own wounds, tries to ease pain by tending to someone else's. But here's the problem. The other doesn't change because you want them to. They change only if they want to. And that decision is not in your control. When you try to save the other, what you're really doing is trying to save yourself. You're trying to prove you're lovable, worthy of being chosen, valuable. But love is not redemption. And no one becomes a hero in a relationship where only one is fighting. You are not their therapist. You are not their emotional parent. And most importantly, you are not responsible for healing someone who hasn't even chosen to begin healing. When you cling to someone who isn't ready, that's not love. That's attachment disguised as purpose. And loving yourself means knowing when to stop, knowing when to step back, knowing how to say, I wish you well, but I can't hurt myself for your sake. Freeing yourself from the savior myth is understanding this. Your mission isn't to fix anyone. It's to grow, evolve, and walk that path alongside someone who's ready to walk it with you, not on your shoulders. It might sound strange at first, but it's true. When you fall in love with someone, you're also falling in love with parts of yourself reflected in them. And the opposite is just as real. What you strongly reject in others is often what you still haven't accepted in yourself. Jung described this as projection, the psychological process through which we see in others the unconscious contents of our own psyche. In simpler terms, what's unresolved within you takes shape in the words, behaviors, and eyes of the one you choose to love. That's why some relationships awaken such deep emotion, such strong attachment, such intense pain. It's not just about them. It's about what they awaken in you. If you feel like you need that person to feel whole, perhaps they're filling a space that actually belongs to you. Perhaps you've placed on them the task of healing wounds that only you have the power to face. Conscious relationships aren't built on filling emptiness. They're built on overflow. They're two whole people who come together to share, not to complete one another. Understanding this is the moment you stop waiting for someone else to save you, to heal you, to prove your worth. It's the realization that love begins within, and that no one can give you what you haven't yet given yourself. Jung once said, "What you deny in yourself will appear in your life as fate." Maybe that wrong person you still grieve wasn't a mistake at all, but a mirror. A screaming reflection of something you needed to face, accept, and ultimately transform. When you understand that, something shifts. Because pain gains meaning. And when pain has meaning, it becomes strength. Strength to choose differently. Strength to love better. Strength to finally see that true love only begins when you stop running from yourself. Have you ever felt like peaceful relationships are boring? as if when everything feels too calm, something must be wrong. That discomfort with emotional peace might seem odd, but it's far more common than you think. And often, it's rooted in what Jung would describe as deep emotional conditioning. When you grow up in unstable environments, where love came with fear, tension, or absence, your nervous system begins to normalize that chaos. The body starts to associate intensity with connection. And later, as adults, we unconsciously seek out that same chemical mix, even when it hurts us. The mind confuses emotion with bond. And so, we become addicted to highs and lows. The silence of a healthy relationship feels empty. Care without drama feels lifeless. Tranquility feels like disinterest. But that isn't love. That's withdrawal from chaos. According to a study published by the American Psychological Association, intense emotional experiences, even negative ones, can activate the same neural pathways as chemical addiction. This helps explain why so many people feel trapped in toxic relationships. It's not just emotional attachment, it's an addiction. And like any addiction, it demands a detox process. The first step is to recognize the pattern. To understand that what draws you in might not be what's good for you, and that peace isn't the absence of emotion. It's the presence of emotional maturity. It's stability. It's the space where love grows without needing to scream. Healthy relationships are not lukewarm. They're steady. And there's a vast difference between stillness and apathy. Your mind may be accustomed to the storm, but your heart is ready to learn how to live in calm. And for that, you must stop confusing love with adrenaline. You must finally understand that emotional intensity is not evidence of emotional depth. Sometimes, what you call passion is simply your old wound being reopened. Behind every relationship where you overextend yourself, tolerate the intolerable, or expect the impossible, there's a silent question echoing within you. Will I finally be loved now? That question is rarely aimed at your current partner. It comes from a long time ago. From a time when you were too young to understand why affection was conditional, why attention had to be earned, why love felt like something you had to fight for. You grew up, but inside you, that child still waits. And now, every time someone rejects, disrespects, or abandons you, that child reacts. And you try to heal through another what still bleeds within yourself. Jung believed that every journey of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, requires looking back at your childhood, not to assign blame, but to seek understanding. Because as long as you try to resolve an internal wound by fixing things outside yourself, you'll keep attracting people who reinforce that same wound. Emotionally unavailable people, abusive people, indifferent people, who awaken in you that all too familiar feeling of being unseen. You believe that if you can just make this person love you, it will prove you're worthy. But that's the trap. Because the truth is, it's not them who needs to accept you. It's you. Healing begins when you realize that the love you lacked will not be repaid in the present. And trying to rewrite the past with new faces is just a subtle way of hurting yourself all over again. Looking inward takes courage. But it's this gaze that ends the cycle, that breaks the repetition, that turns relationships into real encounters, not replays of old trauma. Maybe it's time to stop looking for someone to heal you and start becoming the adult your inner child has always longed to meet. You've probably heard or even said the phrase, "All I need is to be truly loved." There's something deeply human about this longing, but also something dangerously illusory. Many people enter relationships believing love will heal them, that finding the one will fill the void, ease the fear, and erase the pain. That this other person will be a kind of antidote to the suffering they've carried for years. This is one of the most seductive myths sold to us. By culture, by movies, by music. And perhaps for that reason, it's the hardest to let go of. But Jung was clear. No relationship can replace the work of self-awareness. No love can do for you what you refuse to do for yourself. True love does not heal you. It walks beside you. It supports you. It shares the weight. But it doesn't fix you. Expecting someone else to repair your cracks is a blueprint for disappointment. Because sooner or later, reality hits. The other person is flawed too. They have fears, traumas, and limits of their own. And when you realize they can't be the savior you hoped for, you may even begin to resent them for not saving you. But love is not heroism. It's partnership. It's presence. It's walking side by side, not being carried. As Erich Fromm wrote in The Art of Loving, love must not be seen as something that simply happens to us, but as something we create. To love is an act, a conscious decision, an internal movement before it ever becomes an external bond. As long as you continue believing that love will rescue you, you will keep entering codependent relationships. You will keep choosing the wrong people, not because they are bad, but because no human being was made to be your medicine. Love is a bridge, not a crutch. And once you understand that, you begin to walk on your own 2 feet, and only then can you cross that bridge with someone, not leaning on them. You've made it this far, and that's no small thing. It means part of you is tired. Tired of repeating patterns, of accepting crumbs, of blaming yourself for choices that were, in truth, desperate attempts to fill ancient voids. But now you have something new. Awareness. And awareness changes everything. Jung believed that the process of individuation, the awakening of the true self, was the most important journey a person could take. And that journey begins the moment you stop blaming others and start asking, what in me still needs healing? You can't rewrite the past. You can't control another person. But from this moment forward, you can choose who walks beside you. And more importantly, who you decide to become. It's time to lay down the need to be rescued, to stop trying to rescue, to look in the mirror and say, with unwavering clarity, I choose myself. From that moment on, everything that enters your life, especially people, passes through a new filter, one of respect, presence, and wholeness. Because once you know yourself, embrace yourself, and stand firm within yourself, anything that doesn't resonate with your truth simply loses its power to seduce you. You were not born to repeat old stories. You were born to write your own. And now that you know this, choose with more calm, with more clarity, with more love. If this message touched something within you, if it awakened a truth that had been lying dormant, share it with someone you love. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more reflections like this one. And if you want to continue this journey of self-knowledge, I invite you to watch the next video. Until then, and remember, no one can give you what you haven't yet allowed yourself to feel. But once you allow it, the world responds.